How's it going, everybody? Dr. Coin back at it again, and welcome to another episode of the rare and valuable coins in American history. Today we're going to be covering the top 5 valuable wheat pennies that you can find, whether it's in your pocket change, whether you bust open your piggy bank, or maybe you take a trip down to your local financial institution and pick yourself up a couple of coin rolls to search through. Now today we aren't really going to go into any of the crazy errors or varieties you can find for the wheat penny. There are definitely a whole lot to look for, and they can be extremely valuable, but they are a little tricky to detect, especially if you are a new or intermediate coin collector. So I will make sure to cover those in my future videos, but as for today, we're going to be covering just mainly the key dates and valuable wheat pennies that you actually have a chance of finding one day. Before we start this off, I would really appreciate if you guys would hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you would like to see more coin collecting videos just like this. And then, what do you say we get into it? The American wheat penny ran from the year 1909 until the year 1957. There are definitely a lot of errors and varieties to look for, two of the most notable of which are probably the 1943 copper and 1944 steel cent. These are like the holy grails of the American penny collecting world, and they are extremely valuable, but the chance that you will ever find one is pretty much slim to nil. Now, I'm not saying that they aren't still out there, but I know that people have been searching hordes and piles of pennies for years, and they have probably all been accounted for at this point. So I always think it's a little bit silly when people make these top 5 or top 10 valuable coin lists and they include coins like the 1943 copper or 1944 steel penny, because you are probably never ever going to find those. Even if you did find one, it is most likely going to be fake, and a lot of the time, the only way that you're ever going to be able to buy these is if you buy it graded, and you're going to pay thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So those pennies are pretty much irrelevant. I like to discuss the ones that you actually have a chance of finding. So let's get into it. The first penny we're going to discuss today is the 1909 S mint penny. So 1909 is the first year for the wheat penny, and the reason that this is so valuable is it has an extremely low mintage of 1,825,000, and it can range anywhere from $65 to $70 for a VG8 example, all the way up to around $500 for the MS65 range. I also just wanted to make a quick note that there are several other valuable varieties in 1909, like the VDBs, which are the initials of the man who designed the wheat penny. Now, some of these pennies were minted in San Francisco and some in Philadelphia. The ones with an S mint mark and the VDB initials are extremely rare. They were only minted at 484,000, and the values on these can range anywhere from $600 for a VG example all the way up to around $5,000 for an MS65. So we are not going to include this on our top 5 list, but it's just kind of like an honorable mention. So we'll skip ahead a couple of years to the 1912 S mint. Now you will notice on this list that I made today that a lot of these valuable pennies that I am discussing have S mint marks on them. And when they were making pennies, early wheat pennies particularly, they would strike them at the 3 different mints sometimes at the same time. So San Francisco, Denver, and Philadelphia. And it seems like most of the time when they struck these pennies in San Francisco, they would be made at a much lower mintage. So a lot of the time they are much more scarce, a lot harder to find, and way more valuable. And the 1912 S definitely falls under that category. It was minted at $4,431,000. Its value can range anywhere from $18 to $20 for a VG8 to $1,500 for an MS65 example. A lot of the time when you have a key date or a coin that is extremely low mintage, it will usually indicate that the mint was having some kind of problem that year, and that can bounce around in the US from any one of the different mints that the pennies were made at. So the San Francisco mint in most cases is a lot smaller, and they just don't have the infrastructure to pump out the same amount of circulation coins as Philadelphia or Denver. But the next date we are going to discuss, which is the 1914 Denver Mint, indicates that they're probably having some troubles at the Denver Mint that year. I'm not sure if there was a strike, or maybe they had a labor shortage, or maybe a shortage of supplies, but That year, they only produced 1,193,1914 D pennies, and the value on these can range anywhere from $150 for a VG8 example all the way up to $10,000 for an MS65 example. So far, this is one of the most valuable pennies on our list, and it wasn't even actually minted in San Francisco. This is a Denver mint penny, but there must have been some serious blunder or something must have went wrong that year for such a low mintage figure to be produced. If you guys have any ideas or theories or information, I would always like to know down in the comments. But on to the next one, which is going to be the 1924 Denver mint mark. So just 10 years after that 1914 key date, it seems like we have another extremely low mintage penny. This one was minted at $2,520,000. Now the values on this can reach anywhere around $30 for a VG8 up to $16,000 for an MS65 plus example. Now it seems like a lot of these Denver mint key dates are some of the most valuable of the early wheat pennies that you could buy, which is pretty surprising. You would think that those early San Francisco mints would be pushing the $10,000 mark, but it would seem that these Denver mints are extremely scarce, especially that 1914. So I may just be busting open my rolls of wheat pennies that I've held onto for a while to see if I have any of these bad boys lying around. So we have come to the last penny on our top 5 list. Now this is a wheatie that flies under the radar a little bit when it comes to value, but I'm sure there are a whole lot of American coin roll hunters out there that have been looking for this one to fill out their coin books for a long time, and that is the 1931 S mint mark. Now this is probably the key date of the wheat pennies. It is one of the lowest mintages besides that VDB S mint, which you're probably never going to find, because for an American penny being around 400,000, you don't get much lower than that. But the 1931 S mint is minted at 866,000. So that is an extremely low mintage. It is very, very rare that you ever find American coins, especially after the year 1909, that will dip below $1 million in terms of their mintage figures. So for this, that is quite an exceptionally low mintage figure, and I believe that its value honestly does not quite reflect how low of a mintage it has and what a key date that it is, because for a VG8 example, it is only around $70, and you can get an MS65 example for around $500. So I believe that this coin is a steal if you can find one in the lower MS range and pay just around $100, maybe a little less. I think that is a great coin to look for in terms of a key date, and you don't get much lower mintage than that. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you find it helpful. The reason that I'm starting to make these videos is I have recently gotten the opportunity to hunt Canadian penny boxes. I am from Canada, and hunting pennies here and getting pennies from the bank can be an absolute nightmare. But I've had the ability to be able to hunt some penny boxes lately, and I've been finding a whole lot of wheaties in there. So I definitely thought it would be a good idea for me to brush up on some of my knowledge. And as soon as I saw some of these dates, you know, I've watched a whole lot of videos on the top 5, the top 10 rare coins, and a lot of the time they'll show you these S over D marks and D over S marks and the VDBs and all this crazy stuff. It can be really overwhelming for a new collector or even just kind of a casual coin roll hunter. So I thought that I would make these videos to kind of help you guys get an idea of some of the more regular plain key dates that you can find that you actually have a chance of finding, whether you are searching through your pocket change, whether you break open the piggy bank, or you go pick up a box or some rolls of coins from your financial institution. You have a chance of finding any of these wheat pennies that I discussed today. They are still out there. They made quite a few of them. But other than that, guys, until the next one, everybody, peace out and have a good one, y'all.